Okay. My name is Craig Swanson, and this is my final paper for Decision Making in a Chaotic Reality, uh, written June 19th, 2016. Final assignment by Craig Swanson. The subject of the paper is competition versus cooperation. One of the larger arguments put forward in class dealt with the juxtaposition of two overarching ideas considered to be cultural norms. Competition and cooperation are both natural methods of operation that have been used by human beings since before societies were created. There are merits and pitfalls to both. Moreover, they seem to be opposite sides of a coin that people divide themselves over as to which is better. One may in fact be better than the other if both could be better understood a little better. This paper will attempt to do just that. Competition may very well be the better mode of operation for people and societies at large. All life is ultimately competitive. Scientists understand that the natural tendency for all life is to grow and to keep growing in spite of other natural limiting variables. Those variables usually being food, space, climate, and other limited resources. Because there are usually more people than resources, we must compete in order to survive. Greater limitations on resources may lead to greater and fiercer competition. War has broken out over such instances. Competition is therefore necessary for survival. The above explanation is a firmly proven historical fact. People, though, have used the lack of competition or cooperation and its effect on society as a reason to diminish or do away with public safety net initiatives. In other words, if someone needs something, simply cooperate and make their needs go away. Cooperation creates a more fluid leadership and it allows everyone to participate actively without fear of censure. There is criticism, though. Cooperation initiatives, or more cooperative initiatives, such as assistance for the poor, has been criticized as perpetuating that which it seeks to abolish. Critics propose that by giving resources to those who are poor or don't compete well or at all within a naturally competitive lifestyle, society will create a larger and expanding population that will always need more from those who do compete. The act of welfare, therefore, only creates greater need and misery among those seeking public assistance. This controversy is indicative of a class warfare that rages for society's limited resources all over the globe. Never mind that the poor suffer from higher death rates than the rich due to lack of resources such as health care, healthy food, clean air environments, heat in the winter, cooling in the summer, education, and other means by which others would protect and prolong their lives. Cooperation does much more than help people get along. More cooperative individuals are typically better adjusted psychologically and physically healthier than their more competitive colleagues. Cooperation and other social behaviors often have positive side effects in every area of life. Cooperation is a valuable idea and works well um, when it is given to others and encourages more social behaviors. It promotes goodwill toward men and women and is a gift that is always appropriate. There are other adverse conditions that stem from cooperation. Too much cooperation can lead to a kind of groupthink mentality or a yes man syndrome or some sort of conformity issue. If everyone is so caught up in cooperation with the other side that they lose critical respect for the issue, they can all decide to do the wrong thing unanimously. Although there's no doubt that cooperative environments increase the number of ideas, it improves the quality of the outcome and facilitates better working environments. Cooperation must be done in such a way as to protect the integrity of the project at hand. Simply put, cooperation does work well in many cases, but objectivity should be considered as well. Darwin's concept of deadly competition was important for developing his theories of both natural selection and survival of those deemed most fit. Darwin proposed that if animals must compete to survive, the winners would be those with the strongest traits. Those traits would then be passed on to their offspring. Those with weaker traits would perish before they could breed, and would therefore be dropped from the gene pool. Animals and/or societies would continually grow stronger as a result of those stronger traits being more abundant within the gene pool. Natural selection absolutely occurs in all competitive systems. An example within our own society may be a construction firm, two competing firms that is, placing competing bids on property to be developed. Another example might be people competing for promotion at work. Competition and natural selection are a large part of how life exists on Earth. Natural selection has developed a natural and appropriate desire to compete within humanity itself, but it's not the only way to exist. The extreme non-competitive people, or cooperators, would have disappeared from the gene pool a long time ago due to being pushed out by the more competitive people. The extremely competitive people, or competitors, would have perished through endless competitions and likewise failed to pass on their traits. Therefore, a reasonable proclivity to compete is healthy, natural, and arguably sustainable given the length of time life has existed on this planet. Multiple examples of the overall merits of competition are all around us. Those examples are found in economics, politics, sports, war, etc. In every example, would it not be better to be more competitive, though? What about the general merits of cooperation? Does cooperation have a place in society? I would argue that it absolutely does. There are two main types of cooperation: explicit cooperation and disruptive cooperation. Explicit cooperation deals with employees in a firm, for example, who work together to produce something of value. That thing of value could not exist if not for people who have different specialties and abilities. They cooperate for mutual gain. Disruptive cooperation seems like an oxymoron. In this case, something of value may be diminished between multiple parties as they compete over it. Instead, they must cooperate to divide something into satisfactory parts for those involved. Again, you may have heard of the saying, quote, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." When parties that would not normally work together see an advantage in doing so, a brief cooperative exercise might occur. For example, the school bully is on the playground again before lunch, taking money from kids weaker than he is and who cannot defend themselves against his more aggressive efforts. Two kids who do not know each other well, find that their collective efforts may help them to keep their lunch money. They join forces and gang up on the bully, stopping him from his aggressive assault. As with competition, a measured desire to cooperate is natural and appropriate. Those with non-cooperative demeanors would have a low survival rate because they don't know when to just get along with others. Their actions would be too far outside the norms of society, leaving them alone to die as hermits. Likewise, those who cooperated so much that they did not look out after their own self-interest would perish as well. Perhaps this is why people take on healthy enjoyment in belonging to groups or clubs, being part of a team, helping others through charity, etc. How do the two forces interact? It would seem that the connection between competition and cooperation are intertwined so closely in our society that it can be difficult to discern when someone is cooperating or not. In the developed world, we live in what can be called a, quote, positive sum economy. This is to say that the standard of living is slowly rising for everyone. Is that happening because of competition alone? Are we all being dragged upstream to higher ground against the cooperative flow of life's societal river? Or is it because of greater cooperation among more and more people all the time, slowly winning over those one-time competitors? The answer is difficult to ascertain. The answer is difficult to ascertain. One thing is for sure, both exist and have positive and negative elements associated with their usage. Perhaps the answer is one of ecological carrying capacity. The more human beings can obtain from the land, the less people will be in competition with each other for their own well-being. By that logic, innovation would be the key to obtaining greater ease within society, and a great move away from competition. The creation of new ideas, new processes, new products, etc., would make the ills of competitive life go away. Everything would be in abundance. Every person's standard of living would be raised without worry as to the opposite. A system of sustained stability would keep us all warm like a blanket in winter. Of course, greater ease has always led to larger populations. It took from the dawn of humanity until the year 1800 for the Earth's population to reach 1 billion persons. In 1960, it had reached 3 billion, and by 1998, 6 billion human beings inhabited our planet. Competition fuels the need for innovation. Innovation creates new instruments of production, allowing humanity to get more from the land and increase the Earth's carrying capacity. Greater abundance and the feeling that there's enough for everyone allows greater cooperation and population growth until the carrying capacity is nearly met or exceeded. This then increases competition and the cycle repeats itself. When seen on a graph in 100-year increments, this appears to be a series of peaks and valleys within the human evolution. To some, this would represent an overall immaturity across the entire human experience. Why do we put ourselves through these boom and bust cycles? How can we even things out naturally and responsibly without being made to do it through government interaction, as we've seen this last century in China? The Earth's resources are limited. It's an absolute certainty that our carrying capacity could stop growing someday. It might even shrink. Then what would we do? It would become likely that deadly competition would take its toll on humanity. The result will be a steep dive in population, a lack of food and water, disease, war, and other needed elements would all disappear and leave us with nothing at all, perhaps not even each other. In order to save ourselves from ourselves, many say that we should create a more sustainable society. We should create sustainable farming, sustainable businesses, and a whole host of sustainable practices within a greater sustainable economy. We would then be a technologically advanced society with abundance all around us. No starvation, no war, no lack of social justice. The greater balance of humanity would be much more cooperative in practice. Critics of that particular vision say that it's unrealistic, it's utopian, and not attainable because of human nature itself. We are competitive beings. We have evolved that way. Competition is a part of how we think. So, what's the answer? Too much back and forth leaves one weary. To me, the answer is like so many things in life, those lessons we learn growing up that seem boring or mundane are often the most useful. Every person is ultimately responsible for themselves with the life they have been given. We can all choose to do what we want. We can commit a crime, help an old lady across the street, throw a rock through a window, or teach a young child how to read. The choices in life are ours to make. Even after we develop ourselves to make choices along a particular path, we can change our minds abruptly and do the opposite. If we want something better than to be adversely affected by negative side effects of competition and cooperation, we must better develop ourselves. We can all do this in many ways, of course. I will articulate 4 of my favorites that I think work well. First, develop a greater sense of personal responsibility. This is, quote, the idea that human beings choose, instigate, or otherwise cause their own actions. A corollary idea is that because we cause our actions, we can be held morally accountable or legally liable, unquote. Any person can develop themselves along these lines by doing the following. 1. Acknowledge that you are responsible for the choices in your life. 2. Accept that you are responsible for what you choose to feel and think. 3. Accept that you choose the direction for your life. 4. except that you cannot blame others for the choices you have made. 5. It is not reasonable or healthy for you to depend on others to make you feel good about yourself. 6. Recognize that as you enter adulthood and maturity, you determine how your self-esteem will develop. 7. Take preventative health-oriented steps of structuring your life with time management, stress management, confronting fears, and burnout prevention. 8. Take an honest inventory of your strengths, abilities, talents, virtues, and positive points. Now, this approach is not perfect, but it's a great start. Second, follow the golden rule and treat others the way that you would like to be treated. This is also known as the law of reciprocity and is a moral principle of altruism found in human cultures and religions, suggesting that it may be related to the fundamental elements of what it means to be human. Third, work to develop trust among all who know you. You can do this by A. Saying what you mean and meaning what you say. Never use double talk as a method of communication. People will come to understand that what you have to say holds no value. If what you say holds no value, you have no value. B. Become a better communicator. Be more open and straightforward. Start by listening better to what others have to say. Then try to respond with a greater sense of thoughtfulness and sincerity. C. Make right decisions. When faced with any decision, try to understand what the problem is and who is affected by the problem. What would be best for those people and you together? People will notice that you have included them or not when they realize what decisions you have made. D. Value long-term relationships more than short-term success. Short-term success only lasts for as long as the moment you're living in. It becomes the past very quickly. Work instead for better relationships and long-term success. It will become more likely that greater success will come more easily as life moves forward. E. Focus more on your core principles. Discover what your rules of right conduct are. Work to be that person who is true to themselves, then true to others. F. Be honest. Don't lie. Sometimes it's difficult. We say things in order to make people like us or to get our way, but other people eventually figure out that you are a problem and they distance themselves from you to some degree. G. Guide people. Help them to be better. If you know something or have a better idea to share, give it away. Most people appreciate being helped from time to time. H. Show people you care about them. Not everything is business. If you care about someone, let them know in some way. They'll incorporate a deeper meaning to your relationship. I. Always do the right thing. Listen to the better angels of your nature. They will always guide you in the right direction. J. When you don't do the right thing, admit it, make amends, and fix what went wrong. That too will be appreciated. Everyone makes mistakes. Very few people ever own up to those mistakes and try to do a better job next time. Those watching you do this will have a deeper sense of trust created within themselves about who and what you are as a person. Finally, work to build a good personal reputation. Here's how you might do it. Emulate those you know that have earned your respect. Who do you respect and why? Try to be more like that. Cut out the negative talk. Don't say anything bad about anyone unless that person and you are face to face in private conversation. Avoid behaviors considered to be negative in the culture you want a good reputation in. Always follow local customs, especially if you are new to the culture. It's a sign of respect. Take on responsibilities, but be sure you can follow through on them. Don't commit to anything if you can't follow through. Be involved in social activities. Again, not everything is about business. Increase your points of social contact. To be seen and heard, being good and doing the right thing is important. Those who appreciate your style will gravitate to you. Competition and cooperation are a natural part of life. They aren't going anywhere. I chose to write about this topic because I was curious to learn which one was better for me according to how I lived my life. I expected to choose one over the other. I can't do that now. That isn't what I've learned here. Instead, I'm reminded of something that came into my mind a long time ago during a canoe trip on the Mississippi River. That is, we are the problem and we are the answer. Learn how to become a better person throughout your life, and you may understand how to use both competition and cooperation in a way that is both right and just for yourself and those around you.